What is the difference between a one-technique defensive lineman and a three-technique defensive lineman? If you're a fan of football, chances are you've heard these terms thrown around, but maybe nobody's ever stepped to explain what they are. They are two different types of defensive line, but they do different things. So let's quickly talk through what is the one-tech and what are they trying to do on any given play? What is the three-tech and what are they trying to do on any given play? Are these interchangeable? How do you know which player is going to play which position, and as much as we can cover within a couple minutes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. But before we do, let me show you a quick diagram so you can understand that this numbering system isn't as crazy as it sounds. You start head up on the center with the nose tackle and fan out to the wide 9 with the one technique lining up here, the three technique lining up here, and what you'll hear sometimes described as the 5 technique defensive end lining up here and everywhere else in between. Defensive fronts line up all over the place, but nobody's going to describe a defensive tackle as a 4-eye technique, so everybody just approximates any defensive tackle that is likely going to be a pass rusher as a 3 technique, and that's the key word for you, a pass rusher. These linemen are one-gap penetrators in most cases. DeForest Buckner, the Colt, is a phenomenal example of this, who usually only gets 1, maybe 1.5 gaps in the run game because he's going to weigh a little lighter than his one-tech counterparts, between 280 to 295 pounds, and he's going to come with slightly longer arms because he needs to establish whatever early leverage he can so that he can attempt to get around the guard or center, get into running and passing lanes, and create chaos on a down-to-down basis. When you hear this position described as the engine of the 4-3 defense, it's not because of what they do on first and second down, but because they're one of the key contributors to trying to get off the field on third down. And in cases of Indianapolis, but also Buffalo in Ed Oliver, and plenty of other defenses across the country, that 3 technique spot often either gets a one-on-one or creates a one-on-one somewhere else on the defensive line, and in effect becomes one of the most important parts of any defense's pressure package when they're in a pass rushing situation. After all, without any pass rush, a quarterback is going to set up shop behind center and pick you apart over time, and using a running back or a tight end, there are all kinds of ways to chip an edge rusher that are much harder to execute on a defensive lineman. Best case scenario, you'll throw a double at one of these 3 techs, and then all of a sudden you've left the one technique with a one-on-one, and ideally he's able to take advantage of that. The key word for 3 technique is pass rushing position, one gap in the run game, relatively lighter player. Their goal is to get into the backfield one way or another, and ultimately create disruption within the offense. If a 3 technique penetrates into the backfield and turns the running back, but doesn't make the tackle, they've still more than done their job. If they hurry the quarterback, forcing the quarterback to check it down, we miss a tackle and we give up a first down, the 3 technique still did their job by getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands. The 3 technique is not normally a finisher, but special players like Washington's Jonathan Allen, and yes, what the Eagles hope Jalen Carter would be, the 3 tech can not only disrupt an offensive play, but potentially finish it too. Akeem Hicks for the Bears in 2018 showed a lot of the efficiency of an incredible 3 technique as he constantly got into the backfield, hit the quarterback, and if you're a Bears fan, like I know a lot on this channel are, that's a great name to be thinking of, and for Cowboys fans out there, Mozzie Smith would be another one that you'd hope would become a 3 technique to be feared around the league. But the 3 technique isn't necessarily more important than the 1 technique. They're just the one that most often gets credit and makes the flashy plays. 1 techniques like Grover Stewart on Indianapolis do a ton of the dirty work, the gritty run defense that sets up the 3 technique for those big plays. Because after all, if you can't get into 3rd and 8, you won't have the opportunity for that sparkly, flashy pass rush that 3 techniques are often so good at. These guys come a little bit heavier. You're not going to see them as heavy as 330 unless they can really move, but think 310 pounds to 325 or so. Very often, 1 techniques get 1.5 to 2 gaps in the run game. Their goal is to engage the center or offensive guard, lock their arms out, and control 2 run gaps to force the runner to go somewhere else. Again, on first down, very normal running down, and second down too, that one technique really shines, because if they're able to suffocate the inevitable run play that will come eventually, your defense gets ahead of the chains and puts the offense in a 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, and hey, if you made a great play, a 2nd and 12 situation that they've got to dig their way out from. Defense is a team game, and the one technique is one of the most unheralded spots that if you're able to get production out of, you are a really special player, which is exactly why Daron Payne got paid as much money as he did. These guys in the pass rush are more pocket pressers and quarterback hurriers than they are pressure creators and certainly sack artists. Their goal is to take advantage of one-on-one situations when given to them and get the quarterback to throw the football within, say, 3.5 seconds, as opposed to being the guy who's going to try to embarrass his offensive lineman and create an immediate sack. Don't let me limit one techs. Really good one techs can do all kinds of things, but it's just not a position you're expecting that pass rush pressure from. You need them to play the run game. The one technique in this Thunder and Lightning pair is the Thunder. They don't get as much credit as the Lightning, but they are just as important, and without a really good one technique, you're going to give up yardage in the ground game just like the Bears did last year with a serviceable 3-tech in Justin Jones, but no real one tech to speak of, which is why I think the Bears were wise to bring in both Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens, who may be more of a 3-tech, but he played so much 1-tech at South Carolina that the Bears are effectively throwing talented bodies at the position and seeing what sticks, but that's a Bears-specific conversation for another time. One more thing to note is that some defensive lines will shuffle players around just to get a good matchup. A good example of this is that Jonathan Allen's tape actually has a lot of reps at one technique, despite him being a 3-technique or a 5-technique defensive lineman in many cases, because he's able to bully centers like he is. When he's at 1-tech, Daron Payne plays 3-tech because, as we've talked about, special players can be a little bit more positionally fluid than, say, number 91 John Ridgeway, who was drafted just last year for Washington and is pretty much an exclusive 1-technique, though he's pretty doggone good at the job. All that to say that everything we've discussed so far is more general rule than hard and fast law. Defensive coordinators will bend and break their own rules whenever they think they can gain a matchup advantage, so keep an eye out for however your defensive coordinator, whatever team you're following, shifts and changes their defensive alignment to try to gain advantages. To quickly recap, the 3-technique is the pass rusher of the two, relatively lighter player whose job it is to penetrate and create chaos within the defense. The 1-technique, on the other hand's goal is to take up space, especially in the run game, collapse the pocket in 3rd down situations, play a little bit heavier, and cover more run gaps to free up linebackers, which gives your linebackers the freedom and space to attack the ball carrier fearlessly and ideally stop the run for a gain of 3 or less. Both of these defensive linemen are important. You can't have one without the other, and really talented players will play both spots eventually. After all, depending on that offensive motion we talked about, you can't be certain where you're going to line up if you're playing a defensive front that moves before the snap, which you will see occasionally. But hopefully this has helped demystify some of the football jargon and given you a new way to watch your team next year, is you'll be able to watch where your guys line up and know whether or not they're doing their jobs. But that's going to be it from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. You have no idea how much every single little interaction helps grow what we do here. Comment below if you'd like me to talk through anything else. Eventually, I want to put up a breakdown of the basics of coverage, what the nickel defense is, and a couple other things like that, but that's all in future planning. Keep an eye out for more, and until next time, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Enjoy the rest of your day.